Welcome to the Gynergy Effect, where energy meets intention and transformation begins.
We're your hosts, Garen and Yesi, partners in life, love, and purpose.
Here to share the tools, truth, and stories that helped us build a life from the inside out.
Whether you're seeking deeper health, conscious relationships, or your next level of purpose,
you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the Gynergy Effect. Today we're diving deep into the future of health, and it's not science fiction, it's happening right now. Our beautiful guest, Talia Grace Haller, also known as a Biohacking Babe, is a future of health speaker, AI strategy leader, and wearables and health optimization expert, reshaping how we understand our bodies. Talia has led AI initiatives for the NIH All of Us program, advised leading wearable tech companies like UltraHuman, and served as a senior AI strategy consultant, all while bridging science, data, and real-world well-being. What makes her story so powerful isn't just her resume, it's her why. At 8 years old, Talia sat in a doctor's office questioning whether a normal blood test could truly prove she didn't have cancer. That moment sparked her lifelong obsession with diagnostics, data, and redefining what healthy means. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm glad we're finally doing this.
Me too. Yeah, we met a few months ago at a hike that we hosted. And since then, we've also been going to the same altitude training gym. Mm-hmm. We have a similar network of friends, and we've also gotten to know each other at a more personal level. And I've been so excited to have you here.
Yes. Thank you for having me. And this is my favorite topic. I love future of health, diagnostics, wearables, health optimization. So let's bring on all the questions.
Yeah, let's dive right in. So you've had such a fascinating journey from finance and bioinformatics to AI and health tech. What was the moment when you realized this is the future that I want to build?
Yeah, so I think that my path has been very curiosity driven.
Yeah.
When I was younger and that just throughout my life, I think we all have health experiences and I had my own. Yeah. I think maybe one of the differences, I really felt like I was kept up at night by the questions. Like I was so curious about what the answers were, that I think it was kind of inevitable that my path circled back here, but I actually took quite a circuitous route.
Yeah.
So there was a time when I was about 14, I was actually really interested in sustainability and renewable energy. I thought it was really important to keep the planet healthy, all of those things. I think we can all appreciate like clean air, clean water.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the University of Washington, almost got a degree in environmental science. But during my first class there, I realized like, hey, we actually have a lot of the science. It's really the policies. Like we don't have the right policies in place to really help this take off. So I switched my degree over to political economics. About a quarter of the way through, and I realized, okay, it's not just a political issue, it's also a financial issue. Like we are not setting up the right incentive structures.
Yeah.
And so I decided to add on to my degree finance. When I graduated with degrees in finance and economics, I was like, I ended up at Deloitte Consulting. So I was doing strategy consulting there for 5 years. And on my first project, I ended up going in for routine surgery, should have been, up and active within a week. Instead, I found myself bedridden for a few months and had to redo the surgery. And I remember asking the doctor, well, what went wrong? And he's like, honestly, I can't tell you. Sometimes that just happens. And that experience really made me question pretty much everything about healthcare. So while I was supposed to be working, but instead I was in bed on bed rest, and trying not to stress myself out with work, I started reading books on the healthcare system. And that was really my first foray seriously as an adult. I was about 22 at the time, into understanding the healthcare system at a deeper level. And what I realized, this was 7 years ago, was, wow, AI and data are going to completely change the way that we think about health and what we can actually do to optimize our own health and the medical establishment as a whole. And so the cool thing about Deloitte Consulting, when I worked there, was it's a very entrepreneurial company that allows you to pivot a lot. So when I came back from bed rest, I decided to get involved at the intersection of data and AI strategy and healthcare and life sciences, which 7 years ago wasn't as booming as it is today. Today, it's at the forefront of everything. But back then, it was a little bit more on the fringes. It was more on the operational side. People weren't thinking about, how do we use AI in the clinic? How do we use it for personalized medicine? That was a little bit more the art of what's possible in the future.
Yeah.
So that's how I really got into that. And then I spent 5 years working with clients all across the spectrum, from providers, payers, pharmacies, PBMs, diagnostic companies, medical device companies, pharmaceuticals. And because I wanted to understand all of the different pieces and how they work together. And then I ended up going to Johns Hopkins, got my master's in bioinformatics. And I can tell you the story that led me to get that, because there was a specific moment I decided that was necessary. But I really wanted to be able to understand the science. And along the way, that kind of brought me to where I am today, where I really think of myself as a future of health thought leader, and do a lot still within the same space of future of health AI strategy consulting.
Wow. You've had quite the journey. Very, very impressive. I would love to. There's a lot to unpack here. I would love to dive in. What happened? What was the surgery? Like, what triggered that surgery? And like, did you ever figure out like why that happened?
No. And I remember the doctor, who I didn't feel he had the best bedside manner, being like, well, it's just like in a tire factory. Like, some tires, 1 in 1,000, it just comes out wrong. And I thought, no, I don't like that answer. Like, there was obviously some sort of reason.
And this happened when you were 14 years old?
No, I was 22.
You were 22, okay.
So I had just started at Deloitte at the time, kind of fresh out of college, new job. And a couple of months in, I was, scheduled for routine surgery. I went in, took a week to recover, but that ended up being more of like a month. And then I had like kind of a year-long like full recovery process. But essentially what happened is, I don't know if there was something wrong with the surgery, but I got an infection after the surgery. Okay. And so we basically had to do kind of like a surgery to take care of the infection, and then another surgery to redo the original operation. And I don't really have more information about like what went wrong other than that. And at the time, I really didn't know very much about inflammation, the immune system, infection, what to look for, any of that stuff. So that's why in bed, I, was reading all these books like about the healthcare system. I read Eric Topol's Deep Medicine. Eric Topol is a personal hero of mine, and he had written a book, actually, I think that same year, about how we can use AI in medicine and all of the use cases. And I was sitting there in bed thinking, wow, this would be very useful. I'd love to help this movement along. And that ended up like really changing my life.
Wow. And what was the biggest like finding after that happened that you found that prompted your passion to like, 'cause I know you mentioned something about like pursuing your degree in Johns Hopkins. Like what prompted that? We'd love to hear more about that.
So I started going to a lot of conferences, because if anyone has ever tried to learn a new topic all by themselves, it can be boring. It's like, you don't want to sit in a room with a stack of books and the computer and just be isolated. I was like, I want to get out in the world. I want to talk to people. I want to see what the experts in the field are thinking about, what's not said in books. I think like the more I read, the more I realize books and like written resources are such an amazing tool, but there's some things that people just can't put in writing. So if you really want like the full stories, you need to go talk to people and actually find out, what happened and what different people think. So I had started attending conferences, and the first conference I ever went to, I was living in San Diego at the time, which I'm still here in San Diego. I just looked up what is happening in the area, and we have a convention center here. It's amazing. There's so many health conferences, and they had one on Alzheimer's. And so I remember rolling up to this conference. I know pretty much nothing about Alzheimer's. I just chose it because I knew it was an area where a lot of research is happening. And I just start wandering around the expo hall asking questions and learning as much as I could. And I remember coming home each day feeling so overwhelmed because it was just completely out of my depth. But I also was like, this is, what I'm going to need to do if I want to learn as much as there is to learn, and not get stuck in just, too much information. So anyways, I'd started going to these conferences and one came on my radar that was the Dave Asprey Biohacking Conference. For anyone who doesn't know Dave Asprey, he's known as kind of like one of the fathers of biohacking. Essentially, he was this tech guy that made a lot of money and kind of ruined his health in the process by overworking, being very stressed. And once he had, become successful, made money, he's like, okay, I want to focus on my health now. How can I be optimize my health and enjoy all the money and time that I now have? And so he had started these conferences for biohackers, bringing a bunch of people together and tools together. So I go to this. It's
and for those listening who may not know, what is your definition of biohacking?
And I think there's a lot of different definitions. I think of it as, because the way I define it is more of like health optimization. I think of it as what are little things that I can do to make my health the best that it can be. And I think a lot of it, there's different ways you can look at it. You can think of it as just understanding what's happening. So what you can't measure is kind of hard to improve. And then implementing different techniques. And those can range from very basic, like exercise programs, time in nature, the foods you eat, to a little bit more advanced, maybe specific supplements that you want to take, peptides, things like that, to some of the more exploratory and experimental things like cell and gene therapies, and maybe things that fall out in that realm. I wouldn't say I personally have delved too far into the experimental area, although I do like to research those a lot. I, in my personal philosophy, was like, I want to start with the basics and I want to get a very, very deep understanding of the diagnostics. So I understand like what is truly the root of the issue and then go from there. I have noticed like a lot of people when they talk to me about like, oh, what should I do? How should I optimize my health? They really want kind of like something magical, like a little pill or something that they should take that's just going to help them like become more energized and become sleep better or lose weight, whatever, their personal goals are. But I would say I focus a lot more on the side of the diagnostics and like how can you like kind of the basic elements. And I'm still doing a lot of exploration around what really works. That's more in the experimental areas.
And when it comes to diagnostics, a big area right now that's very like hot and trendy is wearable technology. And I know that's an area that you specialize in and that you love, and you have actually a personality quiz to help people determine which wearable is right for them.
So I want to show you the wearable thing real quick. I want to go back to the Dave Asprey conference because I think it's a really important point of what I learned there that led me to go get the degree from Johns Hopkins, which was I'm at this conference and the way it's set up is it's basically all of these different booths and opportunities to try different biohacking solutions, whether that's food, supplements, little exercise protocols, different technologies. They have like hyperbaric chamber there, and
just tried one of those yesterday for the first time.
What did you think?
I felt a little anxious and a little lightheaded towards the end. But for most of it, I felt really good. I think I didn't have anything to eat. I'm not sure what the protocol is for what to do before doing it, but I didn't have anything to eat for a couple of hours. So I feel like towards the end, I started to get a little lightheaded and anxious. But I felt great today.
Well, exactly. And so it's interesting, right? It's like, this seems like a cool technology, but I'm a very methodical person. And so where my mind was going is like, well, explain the science to me. Like, how does this actually work? And people would explain the science to me and I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds good. I can't evaluate that. I actually don't know if that has any basis in reality other than it sounds like you have an explanation that makes sense to you and you're confident in. And then what really sent me over the edge was I was talking to this one guy. He had been explaining some solution. I don't remember what it was. It was like something you drop in water and it does something to like ionize the water and this somehow helps your immune system or something like that. And he had a whole explanation. And I go and I talk to a different group and I'm explaining it. And someone's like, oh no, that's totally BS. Like that doesn't work at all. And here's why. And I remember just sitting there and being like, I want to be able to evaluate these statements.
Yeah, find out for yourself. Like, what is the truth, right? There's so many different opinions, right? Conflicting opinions.
Yes, exactly. And I wanted to understand the science at a very deep level.
Yeah.
And so that's what led to the degree that I got, which was bioinformatics, kind of a mixture of biology and computer science.
Yeah.
And to where I am today, which is I actually think there's a lot of things we don't know. Mm-hmm. I think there's a really strong tendency, especially as humans, to want to be able to box something in as like, this is how it works, or like, this is what it does. But I think like one of my main messages is actually there's a lot of things where it's really not conclusive. There's like certain things we can take from a study, or certain things that are probably safe enough to try and see how they impact you. But I think in general, there's a lot we still don't know about exactly how things work and when they will work for whom, in what circumstance.
It's very interesting talking to a lot of people who are really going deep into the science. It's like the more you look into, the more you study that, it's like there's a lot that we actually don't know. So like the more you know, it's actually the more you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And with study design. So that's something that I became really interested in is, okay, so we got this conclusion from this study. Well, how was that study designed? First of all, did it include both men and women? So actually the first clinical trials that included women didn't happen until the 1990s.
That's around the time that I was born.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, which is not long ago.
And so just like, that's just one example of, we were doing so many studies on primarily men for a really long time, and then extrapolating that to women, primarily because, it was harder to study women with the menstrual cycle and all of those things.
And men and women we're so vastly different, especially when it comes to the menstrual cycle, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so it's just interesting when you actually like dig into study designs more deeply to think about, okay, what can I really conclusively draw? It doesn't necessarily mean the study's not good, but I think maybe it starts to put a little bit more limitations around the conclusions that you're drawing, or open up more questions as well. And I think that is a big problem that I'm seeing with social media. Like I've been getting people sending me TikToks and Instagram reels where it'll be like this very high level conclusion that when I actually go and look at the study, I'm like, okay, that's not exactly the conclusion that I would have drawn. Like I think one of the best examples, there was this TikTok reel going around that was cold plunges are not good for women.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I've seen a few of those.
Right. And so I was like, that's so interesting because I found cold plunges to be very useful for me on an anecdotal level. So I want to, let me read that study. And so I read the entire study and it was quite interesting. Yeah. And I think the conclusion that I drew was a little bit more of like, for women directly after a workout, it doesn't show signs that are particularly beneficial, but it also doesn't show super negative signs.
So is it better? Is there data that supports that it's for women, it's better before the workout?
So to me, it opened a lot more questions. Like I'm like, oh, I would love to see this at different time points.
Yeah. I
would also love to see it test things more broadly than what they were really looking at was like the muscular benefits. So like whether it was they had people doing like a repetitive movement on the knee joint that would show, then you could kind of measure the inflammation around that and some other biomarkers and see whether or not it like the cold plunge had helped to reduce the stress and the inflammation and the muscle recovery. But they weren't looking at a lot of the other benefits, such as like, is it having any impact on like your mental health, like those kinds of biomarkers or like resilience. So you'd have to maybe that's another open question that came for me is like, oh, how might you design a study to see if this has more of like the mental health benefits for women? But
that is probably harder to like measure, right, and quantify. We just actually got a cold plunge on our balcony, so I'm very curious to hear what is your conclusion as far as like when it's optimal for like a woman to use a cold plunge. I have heard that if you're around your menstrual cycle, it's not like optimal because your body's already under a lot of stress. Would love to hear your thoughts around that.
So Well, the thing is that I don't know in terms of like clinical studies. I
Yeah.
can share like my own anecdotal,
Yeah.
like what I found to be useful for me. But I think that's where I really want to encourage people to like think more about the nuance, because I think especially with something like temperature, which is basically cold plunges providing temperature variation. There's a lot of nuance to it, and it's not just so simple. I don't think like we have these studies that yet tell you exactly optimal, at least at a clinical level. But what I can say is, I think something that has come through in the data is for women, the cold plunges do not appear to need to be as cold to get the same benefit, and that could actually be a little bit detrimental, especially to women's reproductive cycle, maybe putting it on under stress it doesn't necessarily need. Like you could get the same benefit with less stress to the body at like a slightly warmer temperature than for men.
You know, like around what temperature would that be? Like that the women can still get those benefits with that. Do you have any numbers around what temperature that is?
I would have to look that up, but I know that like men, I think a lot of times like, because there's almost this thing, right, of like, oh, like you're stronger, like you're more mentally tough if you can go colder. And I think the takeaway for me is like, oh, that's not necessarily the case. Like I think even if you're around like 50 to maybe 60 degrees, like that would still be really beneficial for a woman.
Yeah, that is really good to know, because I love cold plunging, but I don't necessarily love it when it's freezing. Like if I can do the cold plunge and then have it be a little less cold, that would be I think that would be more enjoyable.
Well, and I had one lady who was saying like, hey, I want to have kids soon. Like, is cold plunging bad for reproductive health? So I was trying to see if I could find studies. There may be out there. I didn't see it in a quick PubMed search. But I did see they've done some like looking at like rats and mice with exposure to extreme cold temperatures. And what they were finding there is if there's long duration of exposure to a cold temperature, there can be some harm to reproductive system. But
what constitutes like long duration? Because I know that can be very also it's a little bit nuanced, right? It's very relative, right?
So I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers.
No.
That's a question.
I was like, I'm curious. I'm like,
but my takeaway was like long exposure.
Yeah,
like starting to get like hypothermia and like, you know, if you're doing it for like 3 to 10 minutes, or at least let me say just 3 minutes. Like I think for most people, that's not going to be harmful to you, especially if you don't have like blood pressure or cardiovascular underlying issues. But I think what I like about this conversation, not that it's super useful in the terms that people are like, oh, great, I know exactly how to go cold plunge now, is you maybe know a little bit more how to start thinking about these things and like what you can take from the data.
I feel like, and I think you brought up a really good point with social media. I feel like social media these days is a lot about the algorithm and what's like clickbait, what's going to get the more likes, the most views, but it's not necessarily the most science-backed. So I feel a lot of people take it to an extreme just to get more views, get more attention, because the more you exaggerate, the more people are going to click on it. But it's not necessarily what's optimal. May not be. So it's like, it's good to have to, you know, start questioning whether what you see on social media is actually what's, you know, science backed, right? And what's going to be best for you. And what's, you know, great for men is not always like great for women. We're very different. So,
well, and I think there's 2 key points that kind of piggyback off what you said. One is, I get pressure a lot to be more simplified. Like, no, just give me the high level takeaway. Just give me the one sentence. And the reality is that there are nuances. And I feel personally that I try to simplify as much as I can, but also I want people to think about the nuances. I feel like that's a really important part of my personal brand, is to not simplify it to one sentence, which is not what it is in reality, but to like provide guiding questions to help people think through what might be the best for them.
I think the best thing you can do is to empower people to think for themselves. And it's not like men and women, it's really at an individual level, right?
100%. And then the other thing that I get a lot of pressure on, because I feel like it's so important for people to realize this, is I don't even represent necessarily any brands, but there's a lot of pressure on like how I'm talking about a company or like what I'm sharing or not saying. So if I have friends in a wearable company or a diagnostics company, they really don't want me to say certain things, or like they may really want me to highlight certain things. And it's not a me issue. This is like, I think what people across the industry are facing. So it's like, you really have to pay attention, not just to what people are saying, but what they're not saying. Because I feel like anyone with a platform and a voice is going to be under those kinds of pressures. And I feel lucky to be in a position where like I'm not taking any brand's money, at least not yet. So I don't really like, I'm not financially under pressure from people, but it's like you form relationships with a lot of people, and it becomes, I personally think, harder and harder to be like as brutally honest as you might want to be.
And why do you think that is? Is it because is it more like a brand thing, or they're trying to push sales? So there's certain things that they don't want to say that would maybe be deter more sales.
I mean, every company has sales and marketing teams, and their jobs are to make the product look as great as possible. And so like what they don't really want to talk about, well, these are all the issues that are having. And I try to look at things from a really optimistic, solution oriented perspective, where for me, I want to celebrate anyone that is working towards innovation, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So for example, there's a company that recently came out with a new diagnostic test for cancer. It's a multi-cancer early detection test. They're really kind of a hot topic right now because obviously we would love to catch cancer earlier. The earlier you catch it, the easier it is to treat and get the best long-term outcome. And they had, I think it was a sensitivity of like around 67%, which basically means for 67 out of 100 times that you tell someone that they have cancer, they may have the cancer. And the other 33 times they may have the cancer and they're not getting told that they have the cancer. And so basically it can lead to this sense of false reassurance where in 33 of these cases, oh, I was told I don't have cancer, so I'm negative. Well, no, you're not negative, but you're not negative. It's like you may need to do more investigative work. And I think that's something that can get lost in translation, especially to when you think about the psychology of the consumer or patient who's using that test. For example, I had a friend who found a lump in her breast. Okay, she's calling me. I actually used to do liquid biopsy breast cancer research. So she's calling
what haven't you done?
And that was at Johns Hopkins, their Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center. And so she's calling me like, hey, like, what should I do? And I was like, oh, okay, well, I think the first thing you need to do is, you need to go to the doctor and get a diagnostic done, like probably ultrasound or something, like see what the doctor thinks is best. And that's kind of basic advice, right? But I think when you're thinking about the psychology of someone who has found a lump in their breast, all they want to hear is no, you don't have cancer. That's all they want to hear. They're not that interested in like hearing, okay, this test was negative. Now I'm going to try to take another test and another test just to like double check that that's not false reassurance. No, when they hear one negative, they're like, okay, great. I don't have cancer. I can move on. Unless they're experiencing other symptoms, then that might drive them to look further. But I've just seen like in the case of this friend, she went to one doctor. They said it was, like negative. They didn't see anything. And I was like, okay, just so you know, I would recommend a second opinion if it was me, because I don't want to play around with this. And like, there are a lot of cases of false negatives or false positives. And she's like, oh, like, I don't really want to do that. Like, I already did this. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like, you do what you want to do. I'm just telling you what I would do. But I think that psychology is very important to consider, like, as we're putting those tests on the market. And driving that back around to my point, right, was just talking about, like, I want to celebrate the success of, like, okay, we have someone working on a multi-cancer early detection test. I think that's amazing. Do I think that the accuracy in terms of like sensitivity and specificity is high enough? I would like it to be higher, but I don't want to criticize them. I want to encourage them to keep going. And like, that's the way that I look at it. And I feel like there is kind of a tendency a lot of times to kind of shit on things.
Yeah. I
That
always want to see like what's wrong or question it or like be skeptical about like new things are coming out, right? Like I feel like that's like human nature. We tend to be skeptical about like new things that are like just maybe not like the norm or just something it's new and it's like, oh, it can be a little scary, right?
And I love being skeptical. I think it's so important to be skeptical, but I also think it's important to be encouraging and to like be so open about issues. Like, you know, this company, they're like very open about like, hey, we know the sensitivity of this is low. We are working on it, but like we just want to put out into the world what we do have available now. And I think that would be a really good reframing. In fact, I feel like the medical establishment just needs a lot more of that energy around like, we all know there's problems in the medical establishment. Anyone who has had a health issue knows that, but like, I would love to see more energy around solutions and like, how do we make this better? Like, okay, doctors are so busy. How do we help them? What are we doing for them? Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. My dad just got diagnosed with cancer this year, and I definitely saw like the medical system, how like slow it can be in some places and how it's not, you know, definitely you have to take it up on yourself to like seek second opinions and really like kind of be proactive in that sense. So I think anything you can do to improve those areas to make things easier for the patient is like, it's incredible.
Yeah. And one thing, like just to add on to that, so my dad did a back surgery earlier this year. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've felt like, okay, hold on, let me put this on. Why I felt it's like, I think working with a lot of close friends and families to watch them navigate and seeing the psychology of how they navigate and what they want to do is very different than how someone who is perfectly healthy is thinking quite rationally about it. Like you have to think, usually people, they're in pain, they're scared. This is the last thing that they want to be doing. And that's the psychology of which they're approaching their medical decision pathway with. So my dad, he had a back surgery and it hasn't turned out so well. Like he hasn't seen the results that he wanted. And his doctor was like, well, basically what we can do is we can wait 6 to 8 months. And I said, well, Dad, what I would recommend that you do is go get a second and third opinion. And if they all agree and the only thing we can do is wait, then I guess that's what we'll have to do. But I would want to make sure not to just get the opinion from the person who performed the surgery, because that, like, obviously, you know, if their surgical work wasn't the best, I don't think that's the first thing they're going to want to point to. So it probably, you know, some other doctor will have no problem pointing to that. So, you know, let's get these multiple opinions. Yeah,
and I'm definitely a proponent for getting second opinions. We actually took my dad. My dad lives in Chicago. We took him to Houston, they have the best cancer care, to get a second opinion before starting treatment, just to be sure that we're on the right path. The first results were inconclusive, so I very much agree that you should definitely seek second, third opinions.
Yeah. But anyway, should we get into the wearable test?
Yes, I would love to get into the wearable test. So do you want to give kind of like a background of what is this wearable test? So it's a personality test that allows you answer certain questions and it'll give you which is the recommended wearable for you based on those responses.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I get all the time is which wearable is best for me?
Yeah. I had that question. I used to have an Oura Ring. That's the only wearable I've had.
And I wear like a ton of wearables. Right now I have on 5, but I understand most people want one, and that is totally valid for someone who's not like living, breathing this stuff and trying everything. So there's a lot of factors to consider. And so what I created was essentially like a test where you can kind of find your wearable personality based on different factors that you may want to consider. So we can walk through it and I can kind of share it with you and talk through high level, like some of the considerations. And hopefully that'll help anyone else who has the same question. And before we get in, one thing I would love to say about wearables, like why are they useful? So my whole philosophy around health is at the center is understanding what's going on. Diagnostics, especially as we move into like a AI first kind of world, is going to be like right at the center, where basically your body is constantly sending signals. These sensors and tests can capture those signals. AI can interpret that data in context. The system can route that insight to the right place, whether that's you, your doctor, a digital tool, and then you can get timely personalized treatment. And this is what I really think of as closed loop care. And another popular term is vertically integrated care, where sensing, diagnosis, treatment, follow-up all happens in one continuous data-driven loop. And so starting with a wearable is kind of like choosing the sensors that you want as the system becomes more robustly built out for integration of wearables. In the future, what we're going to see is this vertically integrated care model where your wearable can sense things, tell you like when you may need to take certain actions, consult with your doctor.
So it's more proactive, right? Instead of reactive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Okay.
Right now, it's very much in the early stage where it's just, you know, a nice app that will tell you a lot of interesting insights. But I think we're just on the precipice of getting to really action-oriented wearables where they're actually going to start pointing you in the right direction and helping a lot more with optimization.
I'm ready to get my next wearable. Yeah. I was debating getting an Oura Ring again, but I'm very curious to see what the results will say.
Yes. Okay, so let me pull this up. Okay, so it's called What's Your Wearable Personality? The Biohacking Babe's Wearable Matchmaker. Okay, so the first question is what phone do you use, iPhone or Android? And the reason that's important is certain wearables are designed only to go with one operating system, namely the Samsung Ring, and then certain Apple products like aren't as compatible with Android.
I'm definitely an iPhone girly.
Okay. And then also, what is your sex assigned at birth?
Female.
And that's really important too, because what we have started to learn a lot more so through wearables is that many of the vitals change across the menstrual cycle. So if you are a woman and you are premenstrual or even, or not premenstrual, but premenopause or even perimenopause, hopefully your app and wearable combination is kind of taking into account where you are in your cycle and using that information to contextualize all of your biomarkers. So for example, your temperature, that's one of the key ones, is going to be changing as you move across the menstrual cycle. Your heart rate, variability, some of your sleep patterns, those are all things that are very commonly changing across the menstrual cycle as well. So kind of understanding which wearables may be a little bit more friendly with those health insights if you're interested, and especially if you're a woman, can be useful. And then they can also go into use cases like pregnancy.
And which ones are the ones that you have seen that have, I guess, more biomarkers when it comes to the menstrual cycle?
Well, so what's really cool is it's been an evolution. So when I got my first wearable in 2020, and back then there really wasn't a lot of differences. But then I think what happened is the wearable companies, so like the Oura, UltraHuman, Apple Watch, Whoops, and many others. And in this test, there's 18 different wearables that it looks at the latest versions, started realizing, oh, women are having cyclical patterns. Okay, this is actually affecting these biometrics a lot more than we thought it would. And so a lot of them, especially the top ones, have started designing women-centric experiences depending on your gender. So like if you're a woman and you say that you're a woman and you have it, you'll just start getting that experience kind of automatically. And like I really like how Whoop, UltraHuman are doing it, and Oura as well. Although I do feel like Whoop and UltraHuman to me capture it a little bit better. And then there's some that are starting to come out that are designed specifically for women only, like the Evie ring. And there's the new Encora earrings. So earrings is a new
I haven't
on deck.
Okay, I have to look into that one. I don't know as much about that one.
Earrings, just saw the prototype. They were at Health. They're very cute.
Are they like stud earrings or they're like big earrings?
Yeah, they're like a little stud.
Okay.
Because what they're trying to do too is have, they want to go through your ears. So most, like the reason the ring works, the watch works, the earring works is because it allows them to shoot light essentially through the whatever it is, like I was going to say appendage, but through the area, like whether that's your finger, your wrist, your ear. And that's how they're collecting a lot of the data. Or they'll have some sort of electrodes on there. So it's basically interacting with like current or light through a piece of your body.
Yeah.
And so the ear is actually a great place for that.
That's interesting. I don't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So the next question is, where do you want your wearable? So common things are finger, wrist, and then the ear is coming, but I would say it's still a little early on the ear.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the ear until now. But for me, I don't really love having things that are on my wrist for too long.
Yeah.
Like I can have like a watch and a bracelet like temporarily, but I can have a ring longer without it like being bothering me. I feel like that can be more disruptive to my like just my lifestyle when I have something like around my wrist. So
Yeah.
I prefer around the finger.
Yeah. And I think one combo that we're seeing a lot, because the downside of the ring is there's not a lot of interaction. It's a very passive. You just put it on going.
Yeah.
With the Apple Watch, you have a much more interactive interface. You can actually stop workouts very easily, check your heart rate, like all of the things. So I've seen.
So yeah, it's like limited functionality with anything that's around your finger because it's also like a smaller, right?
Yeah.
It's much smaller. So there's.
And there's also battery trade-offs
Yeah.
because the ring is smaller, but it also has a lot less like display functionality, and most of them have no.
So have like a longer battery life than like a watch.
The watch, like the Apple Watch, for example, has a much lower battery life, like usually 24 to 48 hours, whereas the rings can in theory last 5 to 7 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, we'll go with that. And then the next question, do you want full smartwatch features like a screen, notifications, and location tracking?
I guess if I chose the ring, that's probably a no, right? I don't know if there's a ring that has that functionality. That would be more applicable if I wanted something like a watch, right?
Yeah. And for this test, it's the first iteration. I would.
So I guess I would say no for that.
Yeah. If anyone wants like a more in-depth one, I've been thinking of designing like a more responsive one, because the reality is, especially when you're filling out a test like this, you usually can't get everything you want. So it's important to kind of think about like what you really care about, what you don't care about.
So what's more important to you, right? Yeah, I feel like those things are probably less important to me. I feel like I would care more about like the menstrual cycle and biomarkers when it comes to like my steps, my heart rate, my body temperature, things like that.
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to the next question, which is, what is your first priority? And so I'll read you through a couple. So improving sleep and daily readiness, tracking women's health, monitoring metabolic health, supporting serious endurance or multi-sport training, getting medical grade health insights, always on strain and recovery coaching, finding a budget-friendly option.
For me personally, I would say the sleep, women's health, and then the recovery one, strength and recovery. Yeah.
And so I think too, each company kind of has their own personality and their own things they prioritize. So it's like, if you want the cheapest one, you may be giving up medical grade insights or like, more of the personalization and the coaching. But if you're willing to spend more, then maybe you can get a lot of features. So okay, we'll go with the ones you suggested.
I would rather get more features and spend a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. And I'm actually, so this week, so I had a friend who's very budget conscious, unemployed right now. So she's interested in tracking her health, but she's like, I really can't afford a $300 plus ring. Yeah. So she sent me this one that was only $100. And I said, she's like, well, what do you think of it? I said, well, I don't know. I haven't tested it. So let me buy it. And I'm going to be testing that one this week to see.
I'd be curious to see how it differs from the ones that are like on the higher range of like $300 plus.
Me too. Because I'm like, is it all marketing and branding? Yeah. Or, maybe if this ring is equal on performance, why not? Yeah. So I thought it would be interesting to test that. But I think a lot of the features that we're starting to see just be standardized, like there's a few different sensors that almost every like competitive wearable has now. Maybe it will become easier to build those since there's a lot of prototypes to look at. And we will see a decline in price. Although a lot of the wearable companies that are really prominent, like Aura, who just got billions of dollars in funding. UltraHuman's another prominent one, especially on the global field. Whoop, Apple, they're continually focused on adding new features and figuring out how to level up. So I think we'll probably still see some high prices there because they're adding a lot of features that you can't find elsewhere. Okay, so the next one is, what's your maximum comfortable 3-year total cost, including the device and any required subscriptions?
For the maximum, is there options for that? Is there multiple choice?
So up to $400, up to $700, or more than $700, or no limit.
And that's for 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
I would say no limit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I was like, no.
Okay, Just kidding.
I'm willing to invest in my health. That's the one area where I will invest most of my money.
Well, 100%.
It's the most important.
A conversation I have to have with a lot of friends and families is, a lot of times you end up paying one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. And if you wait for later, usually it's a lot more. So I would rather pay now.
100%. And you may pay in like life satisfaction too. It's kind of, it's tricky because some people, people have different financial situations. And so it's not like an easy prioritization choice for some. But I think also it's a broader conversation than just money. It's also about life satisfaction. And that's something I see people pay a lot more in time and life satisfaction if they wait. And it's not like a cost that they really considered up front. But I just had a friend, she was diagnosed with prediabetes. And I was looking at her biomarkers and I said, look, I don't think you're far enough along where this isn't reversible. I think you can reverse this if you really focus on lifestyle choices. And that's going to start with eating healthy. It's like you're going to need high quality proteins to really stabilize your glucose levels. And like, that's where we should start. And she's like, oh, but high quality proteins, that's like very expensive. And I was like, well, it might be expensive, but I need you to think about the cost of developing diabetes a little bit right now as well, because that's not going to be a choice. If you get diabetes and you have to regulate and you don't have insurance either, you're going to be paying a cost there as well. And it's also going to be a cost in terms of your time and lifestyle quality.
Especially lifestyle. Yeah, my dad got diagnosed with diabetes several years ago, and it's definitely has been a huge shift in his lifestyle and, financially as well. But
And I also think there are ways to make things more affordable. And I think part of it is just being intentional about it too. If you're like, hey, this is the budget and this is the goal, then in most cases, there's creative ways to find both. It just may not be the most enjoyable. Like, you're eating very plain meals. That may be a trade-off. And I at least like people to have the option to choose. And then you can decide the way you want to live your life, but at least know what the options are and know what you're choosing. Because I think a lot of people, they maybe just don't have the options like clearly laid out. And so you get into default option, which is a lot of time kind of neglecting your health and then ending up with the consequences. And I think it would be really cool if we could build a little bit more societal support around helping people understand their options at an earlier point in time and routing them the right way and not in a shameful way. I think that's another thing that's really important to me, is just creating a very supportive environment around health. Like
bringing awareness without shame, right? Like if you haven't been maybe leading the healthiest lifestyle, you can speak about it openly and get support without being like feeling shame around it or guilt.
Exactly. It's like one of the biggest ones, and this is so obvious, I would hope. Sugar is an addictive substance.
Oh yeah.
And we're treating it like, oh, just cut that out. Like just stop eating your ice cream. And it's like, that is really hard for people because it's addictive and your body
naturally craves sugar, right? Especially if you're used to having it, right?
Exactly. And so I think more support to be like, to really treat it as something that like people need help with. It's not just like, oh, you're mentally weak or like.
It's almost like an addiction, right? You have to like treat it like as such, where people need some support, and it's like a transition period, right? It's not like they can just go cold turkey. Maybe there's offer some alternatives, like maybe getting sugar from like fruits or something that's maybe they still get that like a little bit of sugar, but it's in a more natural way.
Yeah. That's one. I think social media and, Netflix and streaming services, I genuinely think at a physiological level, those are addictive because they're providing dopamine hits. And, we're just like, oh, you should cut down your screen time. You should do this, like treating it like people just have full control over it. Like I saw when I was like, I canceled my Netflix subscription at once. And then I was like, as soon as the cancellation hit, because you cancel it and then it takes like a few weeks to run out, I had restarted it 3 times in a row. And I was like, this is crazy. I think I'm actually addicted to this because I literally have not been able to go a day without it. And once that like clicked in my brain, I was like, okay, I want to do an experiment where I actually don't have it for a week. Like I'm not going to let myself like rebuy it this time and just see what that feels like. And it really felt like withdrawal for me, which was so interesting to observe. I think, the social media, the streaming services, and then another one I think is not talked a lot about is sleep and sleep duration. It's like actually providing yourself that full 8 hours, I think is a really good example of something that it's like we're almost addicted to like staying up late or being on our phone or doing this, that, and not realizing that's kind of almost an addiction in a way. And we need to like really have the support to carve out that sleep time and change the narrative. I mean, when I was first joining the consulting industry, the narrative was, a great consultant is like staying up all night, like working on slide decks and like.
I used to be part of that world as well.
100%. And I'm like, wow, I think it's starting to change a little bit where like we've stopped glamorizing overworking and like avoiding your sleep. But I would love to like really see people leaning in. And I'm happy to say that now in consulting, I see a lot more.
I'm happy to hear that. I know when I was in consulting several years ago, it was very much like the hustle culture was very much glamorized.
I think we're starting to see a lot more respect for boundaries when people set them. I think the issue I'm still seeing is some people just don't set boundaries because they, for whatever reason, maybe they don't feel like they're in the position to be able to do that. And if you don't set boundaries, you're going to be maybe working too much. But anyways, should we get back to
that?
Okay.
Let's do it.
The next question is, does it need to be flexible spending account or health savings account eligible? Because for a lot of people, that may be like a way that they can afford it.
Yeah, I would say no.
Okay. How do you feel about subscriptions, which could range from $30 to $6 per month?
I'm okay with them.
Okay.
Yeah. For the right reasons. I have a lot of subscriptions. I should probably cancel some of them, but health subscriptions, yes.
What is the minimum battery life you want?
What are the options for that?
Oh yeah, less than 4 days, 4 to 7 days, 7 to 10 days, and more than 10 days. And keep in mind too that keep like kind of the minimum battery.
The minimum,
life.
okay.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, I would be okay with a couple of days. What was the first option? Was 4 to 6 days?
Less than 4 days is fine. 4 to 7 days.
4 to 7. I would, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Apple
4 to 7. What's the battery life on that?
Usually, under 4 days.
Under 4 days, okay.
Usually, like a lot of people charge every day or like every other day.
I would say that would be like, if I'm ranking like the questions, that would be like lower like priority. Yeah. Like that could definitely be flexible when it comes to that battery life.
See, this is why I need the AI version. This is just the business logic version. But what are your water resistance or ruggedness needs? And the options are only needs to handle sweat or hand washing, okay for swimming or showering, suitable for diving or surfing.
So I can't swim, so definitely not going to be diving and surfing, but I would like to keep it on when I'm showering. Okay. So I would say suitable for like sweating and showering.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
And I sweat a lot too at the gym, so should be at least water resistant.
Okay. Do you need cycle traveling and ovulation monitoring?
Yes. Yeah, I would love that.
Okay. Which clinical health features would you like? And this, I actually designed this test back in July.
Yeah.
A couple new ones have actually come out, which is really exciting. But what I have on here is ECG/heart rhythm monitoring for irregular beats, sleep apnea detection, blood pressure monitoring, health reports ready for physicians, and some that are coming, which I'll just mention, are like hypertension alerts. Apple just started doing that. Blood pressure is on its way. I think PCOS and like different like fertility, like, and contraception. Actually you can do contraception, but I think more around like female health issues are on their way. But these are the 4 options for this test right now.
Is this multiple, like I can select multiple? Okay. I mean, all of them sound great, especially the ones that they can send reports directly to doctors or to, like, can I check all of them?
Yeah, we'll check all of them. Do you need location tracking for outdoor workouts?
No, I don't think so. I think that's less important.
What's your preference for device size or bulk? Ultralight, somewhere in the middle, big and rugged is fine.
Preference is light.
Yeah.
Small and light. The lighter and smaller, the better.
Yeah. Okay. And then last question, I think this is the last one.
Yeah.
Which unique features would you like? So we now have integration with natural cycles, which is the first FDA approved digital birth control app.
Yeah, and I had the Aura ring, so I'm definitely familiar with natural cycles.
Yeah. Then there's temperature-based ovulation prediction, heart rhythm recordings that can be exported or shared, integrated blood testing.
That one.
A cardio fitness measurement like VO2 max, fall detection, stress management with skin response sensors.
Oh, that one too.
Support for continuous glucose monitoring devices.
That one's less important for me.
Okay. Body composition analysis sensor.
That would be great.
Solar charging.
That's I mean, definitely not a need, but that's interesting. I find that super interesting.
Urine analyzer integration.
So would this be helpful? Like, for example, like if you have a UTI, would that be able to track that, or is that something different?
Maybe in the future. So what it can track now is pH, hydration, ketones, vitamin C, and calcium.
Okay.
So actually one of the use cases is for people with kidney disease, because there's a lot you can learn from calcium levels in the urine.
Okay.
And then they want to work on, like, there is actually hormonal trackers. They're not exactly wearables. Yeah. But the one I have on here is specifically with Things You Scan, which just came out very recently, that can track all of that and integrate it with your other wearable data for an ecosystem play, which is becoming really popular. But there's also, from a non-wearable perspective, devices that can do hormones, such as Mira can do like your follicle stimulating hormone and estrogen.
Oh, I love that. I feel that would be great to track.
Yeah. And luteinizing hormone.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like very like tired and fatigued, and I feel like it's at a hormonal level, but it would be great to have something to track that.
Yeah. And so it's been interesting for me. I can tell you about like the clinical research and what's supposed to happen, and then also what's been happening for me. But, you know, when you enter your late luteal phase after ovulation, your progesterone is supposed to rise. As it rises, you should be feeling more sleepy. Yeah. Usually more irritable because your estrogen is also dropping. So rise in progesterone, drop in estrogen. That's when most women are most likely to be hard on themselves.
Is this like right before you get your period?
Yes.
Just for those listening who may not be familiar with all the stages.
All the PMS symptoms. So the stages are follicular, like when you're having your period, up to the ovulation, then luteal, late luteal, right before your period, and then it starts over again. Technically, like in the literature, usually day 1 of your cycle is the first day of bleeding. Yeah. And so, I have seen when my progesterone rises, it's so funny because it's the days I am so tired. Yeah. I'll be like taking naps, just lounging around the house. And it's like, oh, wow, it's so funny to see this just like perfectly correlating.
Yeah. I feel that would be very insightful for more women to keep track of that, and also for like men to understand what's going on in the woman's body.
Yeah. Okay. The others are charging while worn.
That would be good.
Gesture control. So like you can do like little things like this.
Oh, that would be cool. I like that. I was like, these are all great features. Like, I don't need them though, but I like that.
And vibrating alarm.
Vibrating.
I like that one. It will wake you up.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that for like waking up, something that's more gentle than just like my alarm, right? Like my alarm sometimes can be like really disruptive and just kind of like, I feel like it makes you wake up in like a little bit of like chaos mode. Yeah. If we woke up more gently, that would be great.
Yeah. So there's a lot of options. So I'll choose next. And now I will submit. Okay. So you got the UltraHuman ring. And I have a fun little paragraph for each person and like the wearable that they get. And then also a compatibility score. So in the future, like if I were to make this more robust, I would love to show like compatibility scores for multiple wearables. But the UltraHuman ring, it's really like the bio optimizer who likes to experiment, crunch numbers, see their glucose, HRV, metabolism, integrate with their blood work. They were the first one to do that back in July. But just in the last month, we've seen both Aura and Whoop come out with integrated blood tests as well. They're all through Quest. I actually just tried out the Aura and the Whoop at the same time on Monday of this week. Already getting the results back. I just wanted to check, see the full experience for each, but then also look at the replicability. Yeah. Make sure that the numbers are coming back the same and see kind of like where that shakes out. And what's interesting, so I got them done at the exact same time. Yeah. Right? All from the same blood draw. And they've come back with different biomarkers that are out of range, but within the same ballpark, but slightly different biomarkers that are out of range. So that's interesting to see. I'll be doing a full analysis of that soon.
Super interesting. So it sounds like I'm getting an UltraHuman ring next.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? So UltraHuman is really an ecosystem play. So they are trying to connect the ring with a lot of vital biomarkers. And one of the reasons I think you might really like this one is they just acquired a company that had years and years of really high quality female or women's health data. And so they're integrating all of that, which actually has an FDA approved algorithm into the app experience.
I love that. That's the part that I'm like the most interested in, women's health and my reproductive system and hormones. I feel like that's where I feel like it can change your life literally when you understand that and can adjust kind of like your lifestyle or maybe your habits based on your cycle and what's going on in your body to really understand that.
So they have that, which I think you would love. Yeah, they integrate with the continuous glucose monitor, although Aura also does that. But the difference, I think one of the biggest difference, because I get asked all the time, like, what's the difference between Aura and UltraHuman? Yeah. They have very different UI experiences. I would say UltraHuman is for people who want a little bit more data and a little bit more of the numbers, although they are considering a simplified interface as well.
Okay, so you get a little more data with UltraHuman than you would with Aura Ring.
Yeah, Aura is definitely a bit more.
Those are the two that I'm always like, that I've been looking at. So
and a lot of people go back and forth. Yeah, what I would say is a bit more like polished, high level, like, you know, you're going to be getting like very, in my opinion, like surface level insights. Yeah. But I know some people who really like that experience. Yeah. Like, I don't want to.
They just want like the high level, like, yeah.
So like, for example, their CGM experience, the continuous glucose monitor, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's a small skin sensor that sits on the fattest part of your upper arm typically. And
I've been meaning to try those too.
Gosh, you have to try it. Yeah. It's great for tracking metabolic health, and you can see how your body is responding in real time to food, stress, sleep, other environmental factors. So that is probably the most useful tool I've seen for optimizing my own diet. And one thing people don't understand, like food pyramids are not good for the average person. Yeah. That's very simplified. There's glucotypes. What a glucotype is how what your glycemic response will be to certain foods. Some people have a high glycemic response to rice. Some people have a high glycemic response to oatmeal. It's different.
So when you're wearing this and you eat those foods, it would tell you like if there's like a spike or there's like a drop, right? Yeah. Based on what you're eating, how your body's responding to it. Okay.
You'll see the curve. So like for me, I do really well with rice. White rice is like my best friend.
I love white rice. So hopefully I do good with that too.
Same. And I had always noticed that I didn't do well with oatmeal. And when I was observing it in the glucose curve, I was like, yep, 100%. I always get lightheaded and kind of tired after eating oatmeal, but everyone was like, oh, it's so good for you. It's so fibrous. Yeah. And then I saw it. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be eating this much anymore because it's just not something that works well for my body. So it gives you very personalized insights.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, before we wrap up, I want to do a rapid fire. I don't know. Was that, before we move on to the next thing, how can people access this quiz or take this quiz themselves if they're wondering which one's the right wearable tech for me? Yeah. Where can they find this?
So I will share you a link and you can include that in the podcast notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's just a fun thing, I think, for people to play around with and see, like, you know, what wearable.
And this is a quiz that you designed yourself. So
I designed it myself, and I'll be honest, it's not perfect, but it is free and it is informative. So you can.
Thank you so much. No, that was super fun and informative, and I'm super excited to get an UltraHuman right now.
Yeah.
So quick rapid fire questions before we wrap up. What's your favorite wearable that you're obsessed with right now? I know you've been testing out a few. Mm-hmm. Which one's your favorite that you're obsessed with?
Man, that's hard because there's so many. I would say like kind of the newest one, because I want to give a more fun answer, is I've really been enjoying my Mira hormone monitor that tracks the 4 hormones I discussed, because I started having irregular cycles after I got E. coli poisoning in Thailand, which is a whole nother story.
We'll save that for the next episode.
And so I was like, okay, I need to get my like hormones. I could tell that they were off, right? Because I was having various or like very varied cycles ranging from like 20 to 48 days, which is not normal. And I was like, I want to regulate that so that I don't end up with, you know, a condition or like a hormonal imbalance. So it's been fun to actually.
So what is that one called again?
It's called Mira.
Mira, okay.
And it's basically every day you pee in a cup, you take a little stick, you dip it in the cup, and then you dip it into this little Mira egg contraption, and it will tell you the level of hormones.
I love that. I'm definitely going to check that out. Next one. What's one health hack you think is overhyped?
That's a good question. I think that people overhype supplements a lot and just start taking supplements and think that it's suddenly going to be a magic potion for them. I think supplements really need to be done in conjunction with biomarker testing. It's like a Goldilocks situation. Like, you don't want too much, you don't want too little, you want the right amount for your body.
Yeah. And it's at an individual level. One morning ritual you never skip.
I stretch every day to get the blood flowing. So I do a 10-minute stretch. I drink about 20 ounces of water, and then I put vitamin C oil on my face.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to try that. If you could invent any health tech, what would it do?
So I've really wanted to invent and I'm actually talking to different people to see how this could be possible, but 2 things. I'm really, really interested in continuous protein monitoring. So something that would be able to track all of the amino acids fluctuation throughout the day, which could be very useful for a number of use cases like sleep, energy, getting the most out of your workouts. It doesn't exist right now.
I love that. It also could be great for optimal muscle growth, right? You can see that's...
Yeah. And they are like, Abbott is coming out soon, I believe, with there's been some rumors around continuous glucose, and I think it's ketone and lactate. And that'll be really useful for working out, but I'd love to see it get extended.
I would love to see that too.
But there's obviously a lot of like chemical and assay constraints there. So it may be some time, although I did just see something like really promising about a multi-analyte protein technology that actually uses like the binding capabilities.
Thank you. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Talia. Thank you for coming on. I know we're going to have a second interview. There's so much to unpack and so much to talk about.
This was so
Thank
fun.
you so much. No, of course. Of course. No, thank you for sharing all your insights. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. I get a lot of questions through Instagram. So I would love, like, if people have questions, send them my way. And I always use those.
What is your Instagram?
At the Biohacking Babe.
Yeah. Oh, I love that name. I knew when I saw that name that I liked you. Oh, well, thank you again so much. This was incredible.
Yes, thank you. Okay, great.
If this episode spoke to your soul,
share it with someone you love. Tag us at the Gynergy Effect. We'd love to connect.
And remember, Your energy is your power. Use it with intention.